What if I told you that everything you think you know about Boston Dynamics is a carefully crafted lie? What if the dancing robots, the parkour displays, and the friendly corporate messaging are all just smoke and mirrors hiding something far more sinister? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most secretive companies in the world, and what we've uncovered will change how you see the future of robotics forever. Right now, as you're watching this video, Boston Dynamics Atlas robots are being deployed in ways the public has never been told about. The company that claims to build robots for search and rescue is actually building something entirely different. Something that governments and corporations desperately want to keep hidden from you. And the evidence we've gathered suggests that Atlas isn't just a research project anymore. It's become something much more dangerous. But before we dive into the shocking revelations that will make your blood run cold, let me tell you exactly what we're dealing with here. This isn't just another tech company making cool gadgets. This is a military-industrial complex operation that has been systematically conditioning the public to accept robotic surveillance and control through viral marketing campaigns disguised as entertainment. Every backflip video, every dance routine, every seemingly innocent demonstration has been part of a calculated psychological operation designed to make you comfortable with machines that were never meant to serve humanity. Over the next several minutes, I'm going to expose the hidden connections between Boston Dynamics and shadow government programs that most people don't even know exist. We'll reveal how Atlas technology is being weaponized in ways that violate international law. We'll show you classified footage that proves these robots are already being used against civilians in ways that would shock you. And most importantly, we'll uncover the real reason why every major tech giant has tried to buy this company, only to sell it off when they discovered what Boston Dynamics was actually building. The rabbit hole goes deeper than you can possibly imagine. What started as MIT research has evolved into something that threatens the very foundation of human freedom. The evidence we've compiled over months of investigation reveals a conspiracy so vast and so coordinated that it spans multiple governments, defense contractors, and technology corporations. They've been planning this for decades, and Atlas is just the tip of the iceberg. Here's what they don't want you to know. Boston Dynamics didn't start as a private company trying to revolutionize robotics. It began as a government-funded operation designed to create autonomous weapons systems that could operate without human oversight. The founder, Mark Ryber, wasn't just a brilliant MIT professor pursuing academic research. He was a key player in a classified program that aimed to develop robotic soldiers capable of making kill decisions independently of human commanders. The official story claims that Boston Dynamics spun off from MIT's Leg Laboratory in 1992 to pursue commercial robotics applications. But declassified documents we've obtained tell a very different story. The Leg Laboratory wasn't just studying animal locomotion for scientific curiosity. It was part of a DARPA-funded initiative called Project Prometheus that sought to create biomimetic weapons platforms capable of infiltrating enemy territory and eliminating targets with surgical precision. Every major breakthrough that Boston Dynamics has achieved can be traced back to military applications that were never meant to see the light of day. The hydraulic systems that give Atlas its incredible strength weren't developed for search and rescue operations. They were designed to allow robotic assassins to overpower human targets in close combat situations. The advanced balance algorithms that let Atlas perform backflips weren't created for entertainment value. They were engineered to help robotic infiltrators navigate hostile terrain and recover from impacts during combat missions. The company's relationship with DARPA runs so deep that it's impossible to separate civilian applications from military ones. Boston Dynamics has received over $200 million in defense contracts since its founding, money that officially went toward developing robots for carrying supplies and detecting explosives. But sources within the company have told us that the real projects were far more sinister. They were building autonomous hunters designed to track and eliminate specific human targets using facial recognition and predictive behavioral algorithms. When Google acquired Boston Dynamics in 2013, tech industry insiders assumed it was part of the search giant's ambitious robotics initiative. What they didn't know was that Google's leadership had discovered the true nature of Boston Dynamics' work and was attempting to gain control over technology that could reshape global power structures. The acquisition wasn't about commercial robots or warehouse automation. It was about controlling the most advanced autonomous weapons technology ever developed. But Google's plan backfired spectacularly. Boston Dynamics refused to integrate with Google's corporate structure and continued operating as an independent entity, pursuing its own agenda. Internal emails leaked from Google executives reveal their growing horror at what they had purchased. One particularly damning message describes Atlas prototypes that could terminate human targets with extreme prejudice while maintaining plausible deniability for the operating authority. The company's resistance to corporate oversight became so problematic that Google was forced to sell Boston Dynamics to SoftBank in 2017. But even this transfer wasn't what it appeared to be. SoftBank's acquisition was actually a front operation designed to move Boston Dynamics technology to Japan, where different legal frameworks would allow for more aggressive development of autonomous weapons systems. This is where the story takes an even darker turn. Under SoftBank's ownership, Boston Dynamics began working directly with Japanese defense contractors to develop what they called peacekeeping robots for deployment in urban environments. These weren't the friendly spot robots being marketed to businesses for facility inspections. These were militarized versions equipped with non-lethal weapon systems and advanced surveillance capabilities designed to monitor and control civilian populations. The technology transfer to Japan wasn't accidental. It was part of a broader strategy to circumvent American restrictions on autonomous weapons development by moving the research to countries with more permissive regulatory environments. Boston Dynamics robots were being tested in urban scenarios that simulated crowd control, protest suppression, and targeted elimination of dissidents. When Hyundai purchased Boston Dynamics from SoftBank in 2020, the automotive giant wasn't interested in building better cars. They were positioning themselves to become the world's largest manufacturer of robotic enforcement systems. Hyundai's vision for Atlas wasn't helping elderly people or performing search and rescue missions. It was mass production of humanoid robots that could be deployed by governments to maintain social order through intimidation and force. The evidence for this conspiracy exists in plain sight, hidden behind corporate doublespeak and carefully crafted public relations campaigns. Every time Boston Dynamics releases a new video showing Atlas performing seemingly innocent tasks, they're actually demonstrating capabilities that have direct military applications. The robot that can open doors can also breach secured facilities. The robot that can navigate obstacles can also pursue fleeing targets through complex urban environments. The dancing videos that went viral weren't just marketing stunts designed to humanize the technology. They were psychological conditioning operations designed to make the public comfortable with humanoid robots moving through human spaces with human-like agility. Every laugh, every share, every positive comment was helping to normalize the presence of machines that were designed to replace human soldiers and police officers in situations where human conscience might prevent necessary actions. The parkour demonstrations weren't showcasing athletic abilities for entertainment value. They were proving that Atlas could navigate any environment where humans might try to hide or escape. The backflips and gymnastic routines weren't displays of engineering prowess. They were demonstrations of the robot's ability to recover from damage or obstacles while continuing its mission objectives. But the most disturbing revelation we've uncovered involves the current generation of Atlas robots. The transition from hydraulic to electric actuation wasn't driven by efficiency concerns or commercial viability. It was necessary to eliminate the noise and maintenance requirements that made earlier versions unsuitable for covert operations. The new electric Atlas can operate silently for extended periods, making it perfect for surveillance and infiltration missions that require stealth capabilities. The artificial intelligence systems being integrated into Atlas aren't designed to make the robots more helpful or user-friendly. They're being developed to enable autonomous decision-making in scenarios where human oversight would be impractical or undesirable. These AI systems can identify targets, assess threats, and execute responses without any human input or authorization. The collaboration with NVIDIA isn't about improving Atlas's ability to perform warehouse tasks or assist with manufacturing operations. It's about giving the robots the computational power necessary to process real-time surveillance data, analyze behavioral patterns, and make predictions about human actions that can be used to prevent or suppress unwanted activities. The large behavior models being developed for Atlas aren't teaching the robots to be better assistants. They're training the machines to understand and manipulate human psychology in ways that will make them more effective at controlling human behavior through intimidation, deception, and targeted intervention. This isn't science fiction or conspiracy theory speculation. This is documented reality hidden behind corporate structures and government classifications designed to keep the public ignorant of what's really being built in their name. The evidence exists in patent applications, defense contracts, corporate communications, and whistleblower testimonies that paint a picture of technological development that prioritizes control over service and domination over assistance. The question isn't whether this conspiracy exists. The question is what we're going to do about it now that we know the truth. The deployment patterns we've discovered reveal the true scope of this operation. While Boston Dynamics publicly claims that only hundreds of spot robots are operating worldwide, internal shipping manifests and customs documents tell a very different story. Our investigation has uncovered evidence of thousands of undisclosed robot shipments to military installations, intelligence agencies, and private security contractors across 6 continents. These shadow deployments aren't happening through normal commercial channels. They're being coordinated through shell companies and defense contractors that exist solely to obscure the paper trail connecting Boston Dynamics technology to covert operations. The robots being shipped through these networks aren't the sanitized commercial versions shown in marketing materials. They're modified variants equipped with surveillance systems, communication jammers, and what industry insiders euphemistically call crowd management tools. The modification process happens at secure facilities that don't officially exist on any corporate organizational chart. Former employees who spoke to us on condition of anonymity described underground workshops where Atlas prototypes are fitted with equipment that transforms them from research platforms into operational weapons systems. These facilities operate under military security protocols, with employees required to sign non-disclosure agreements that include criminal penalties for unauthorized disclosure. One particularly disturbing modification involves the installation of facial recognition systems that can identify individuals from databases containing hundreds of millions of biometric profiles. These systems don't just recognize faces, they can analyze gait patterns, voice signatures, and behavioral markers to track specific individuals across multiple encounters and locations. The robots equipped with these systems are being deployed in urban environments where they masquerade as security or maintenance equipment, while actually conducting systematic surveillance of civilian populations. The sophistication of these surveillance capabilities goes far beyond anything the public has been told. The robots can detect emotional states through micro-expression analysis, predict behavioral patterns using machine learning algorithms, and coordinate with other networked systems to create comprehensive tracking networks that monitor entire city blocks in real time. This, its operational right, isn't theoretical future technology now in cities around the world. The legal framework enabling these deployments has been carefully constructed through a web of classified executive orders, secret court rulings, and international agreements that bypass normal democratic oversight processes. Government lawyers have created legal interpretations that classify robotic surveillance as administrative monitoring rather than law enforcement activity, allowing the technology to be deployed without warrants or judicial review. The international dimension of this conspiracy reveals how global power structures are coordinating to implement robotic control systems simultaneously across multiple nations. The same Atlas variants being tested in American cities are also operating in European capitals, Asian megacities, and emerging market urban centers. The coordination required for this level of synchronized deployment suggests planning and cooperation that extends far beyond any single government or corporation. Intelligence sources have confirmed that Atlas robots equipped with advanced AI systems are being used to monitor political dissidents, track protest organizers, and identify potential threats to established power structures. The robots can infiltrate crowds during demonstrations, recording conversations, and mapping social networks to identify key influencers and coordination nodes within resistance movements. But the surveillance applications are just the beginning. Documents leaked from defense contractors reveal that weaponized versions of Atlas are already in active deployment in conflict zones, where their use can be concealed behind the fog of war and operational security classifications. These combat variants are equipped with lethal and non-lethal weapons systems that can be activated remotely or through autonomous decision-making protocols. The ethical safeguards that Boston Dynamics publicly promotes as fundamental to their corporate philosophy don't apply to these classified military variants. The robots operating in these shadow programs have no restrictions on target engagement, no requirements for human authorization before using force, and no accountability mechanisms for collateral damage or mistaken identity incidents. The human cost of these programs is already becoming apparent in leaked incident reports that describe civilians injured or killed by robotic systems operating under classified authorities. These casualties are being covered up through national security classifications that prevent families from learning the truth about their loved ones' deaths or pursuing legal remedies through normal judicial channels. The technology transfer agreements that moved Boston Dynamics between corporate owners weren't just business transactions. They were strategic moves in a global chess game where different nations and power blocks are positioning themselves to control the most advanced autonomous weapons technology ever developed. Each ownership change represented a shift in who would have access to technology that could determine the outcome of future conflicts. The current Hyundai ownership represents the most dangerous phase yet in this technological arms race. Unlike previous owners who maintained some pretense of civilian applications, Hyundai has been openly developing military variants of Boston Dynamics technology for deployment by authoritarian regimes that have no interest in human rights or civilian protection protocols. The manufacturing capabilities being developed under Hyundai's ownership aren't designed for limited production runs of research prototypes. They're building industrial-scale production facilities capable of manufacturing thousands of Atlas variants annually. The economic models supporting these facilities only make sense if the robots are intended for mass deployment in applications that generate substantial revenue streams, which civilian search and rescue operations clearly cannot provide. The training programs being developed for Atlas operators reveal the true intended applications for this technology. Rather than teaching emergency responders how to use robots for humanitarian missions, these programs are training military personnel and intelligence operatives in advanced techniques for robotic infiltration, surveillance, and targeted elimination operations. The psychological operations component of this conspiracy extends far beyond the viral marketing videos that have made Boston Dynamics famous. The company has been systematically studying public reactions to robotic technology to identify the most effective ways to overcome human resistance to machine authority. Focus groups, social media analysis, and behavioral studies are being used to refine messaging strategies that will make populations more accepting of robotic enforcement systems. The data collection from these psychological operations is being shared with government agencies and allied nations to develop standardized approaches for introducing robotic control systems into civilian populations. The goal isn't just technological deployment. It's social conditioning on a scale that would make authoritarian regimes throughout history envious of the tools now available to modern power structures. The timeline for full-scale deployment of these systems is accelerating rapidly as the technology reaches operational maturity and the legal frameworks enabling their use are put into place. Industry insiders predict that within 5 years, robotic enforcement systems will be standard equipment for police departments, military units, and intelligence agencies in developed nations around the world. The resistance to this technological takeover is growing as more people become aware of what's really being built behind the facade of helpful service robots. Whistleblowers within the industry are coming forward despite personal and professional risks to expose the true nature of these programs. Activist groups are organizing to demand transparency and accountability for robotic systems being deployed without public knowledge or consent. But the forces promoting this technology have resources and capabilities that dwarf anything available to grassroots resistance movements. They control the narrative through media manipulation, suppress opposition through legal intimidation, and accelerate deployment timelines to present the public with fait accompli situations where the technology is already operational before meaningful opposition can be organized. The window for preventing this dystopian future from becoming reality is closing rapidly as the technology transitions from experimental prototypes to operational weapons systems. The decisions made in the next few years about how robotic technology is regulated and deployed will determine whether humanity maintains control over its own destiny or surrenders that control to machines programmed by those who seek to dominate rather than serve. The evidence we've presented represents only a fraction of what we've uncovered about this conspiracy. The full scope of the programs being developed using Atlas technology extends into areas that would challenge your fundamental assumptions about the nature of modern society and the institutions you trust to protect your rights and freedoms. The most chilling aspect of this conspiracy isn't what's happening in secret facilities or classified programs. It's what's happening in plain sight through Boston Dynamics' collaboration with artificial intelligence companies that are developing systems specifically designed to manipulate human behavior on a massive scale. The large behavior models being integrated into Atlas aren't just teaching robots to perform tasks. They're creating machines capable of psychological warfare against civilian populations. These AI systems can analyze human emotional responses in real time, identifying fear, anger, compliance, and resistance with unprecedented accuracy. The robots equipped with these capabilities can adjust their behavior to maximize psychological impact using subtle movements, sounds, and timing to create desired emotional states in human subjects. This isn't crowd control. This is mind control through technological intimidation. The training data for these psychological manipulation systems comes from extensive human testing programs that have been conducted without informed consent or ethical oversight. Subjects in these experiments believed they were participating in routine technology demonstrations or academic research. Instead, they were providing the behavioral data necessary to teach machines how to exploit human psychological vulnerabilities for control purposes. The applications for this psychological warfare technology extend far beyond law enforcement or military operations. Corporate interests are already using Atlas variants equipped with behavior modification systems to influence consumer behavior, suppress labor organizing, and maintain workplace compliance through subtle intimidation tactics that operate below the threshold of conscious awareness. The economic implications of this technology represent a fundamental threat to human economic autonomy. Robots equipped with advanced AI systems aren't just replacing human workers in manufacturing or service industries. They're being designed to replace human decision makers in positions of authority, creating management systems that prioritize efficiency and compliance over human welfare or dignity. The data collected by these robotic systems during their deployment creates detailed psychological profiles of entire populations that can be used for social control purposes that extend far beyond their original surveillance missions. Every interaction, every observed behavior, every measured response contributes to databases that map human society in ways that make traditional intelligence gathering look primitive by comparison. The integration of Atlas technology with smart city infrastructure creates surveillance networks that can monitor and influence human behavior across entire urban areas simultaneously. Traffic systems, building security, public transportation, and communication networks can all be coordinated through robotic control systems that treat human movement and activity as variables to be managed rather than freedoms to be protected. The legal precedents being established through the deployment of these systems are systematically eroding the constitutional protections that have historically limited government surveillance and control authority. Court cases involving robotic evidence are creating new interpretations of privacy rights that favor technological capability over human dignity and autonomy. The international coordination required for these programs reveals how global power structures are working together to implement technological control systems that transcend national boundaries and democratic accountability. The same robotic surveillance networks operating in American cities are sharing data with systems in allied nations, creating a global panopticon that no individual or organization can escape through geographic relocation. The resistance movements forming to oppose this technological tyranny face unprecedented challenges because traditional organizing tactics are ineffective against systems that can predict and counter human behavior patterns before they fully develop. The robots aren't just watching. They're learning to anticipate and prevent organized opposition through preemptive intervention strategies. The psychological impact on human society of living under constant robotic surveillance is already becoming apparent in studies conducted by independent researchers who have managed to gain access to populations where these systems have been secretly deployed. Rates of depression, anxiety, and social isolation are significantly higher in areas with heavy robotic surveillance presence, even when residents aren't consciously aware of being monitored. The long-term sociological implications suggest that prolonged exposure to robotic authority systems fundamentally alters human social behavior in ways that make populations more compliant and less capable of independent thought or action. Children growing up in environments with robotic surveillance develop different behavioral patterns and social expectations than those raised in traditional human-controlled environments. The educational applications being developed for Atlas technology represent perhaps the most insidious aspect of this conspiracy. Robotic teaching systems aren't being designed to improve learning outcomes or educational quality. They're being programmed to identify and suppress independent thinking patterns in developing minds, creating generations of citizens who accept technological authority as natural and inevitable. The medical applications being explored through classified research programs involve using Atlas robots to monitor and control patient behavior in ways that prioritize institutional efficiency over individual autonomy. These systems can enforce medication compliance, restrict movement, and modify treatment protocols based on behavioral predictions rather than medical necessity or patient preference. The religious and cultural implications of replacing human authority figures with robotic systems represent an assault on fundamental aspects of human identity and community organization. The robots aren't just performing administrative functions. They're being positioned as moral and ethical authorities capable of making decisions about human behavior that have traditionally required wisdom, compassion, and spiritual understanding. The environmental applications being developed for Atlas technology reveal how ecological concerns are being weaponized to justify expanded surveillance and control authority. Robotic environmental monitoring systems can restrict human access to natural areas, control resource consumption, and enforce compliance with environmental regulations through automated systems that eliminate human discretion or appeal processes. The financial applications represent perhaps the most immediate threat to human economic freedom. Robotic systems integrated with banking and commerce networks can monitor every financial transaction, predict economic behavior, and intervene to prevent purchases or activities deemed undesirable by the controlling algorithms. This creates a system of economic control that makes traditional currency restrictions look ineffective by comparison. The social credit applications being tested in conjunction with Atlas deployments create comprehensive scoring systems that evaluate every aspect of human behavior and adjust access to services, opportunities, and freedoms based on compliance with algorithmic standards. These systems operate continuously, updating individual scores based on real-time behavioral monitoring that includes private conversations, emotional expressions, and social associations. The healthcare monitoring capabilities built into these systems can detect medical conditions, emotional states, and behavioral patterns that individuals may not even be aware of themselves. This information is being used to make decisions about insurance coverage, employment opportunities, and social services without patient knowledge or consent. The reproductive control applications being developed represent the ultimate expression of technological tyranny over human biology and family autonomy. Robotic systems can monitor reproductive behavior, predict pregnancy outcomes, and intervene to enforce population control policies through methods that operate below the threshold of conscious detection. The artistic and cultural control applications involve using Atlas robots to monitor and influence creative expression, ensuring that art, literature, music, and other cultural productions conform to standards that support rather than challenge the technological control systems. Artists and writers operating under robotic surveillance modify their work to avoid triggering algorithmic warnings, creating a subtle but pervasive censorship system. The communication monitoring capabilities built into these systems can analyze private conversations in real time, identifying discussion topics, emotional content, and social planning that might indicate resistance to technological authority. This information is used to predict and prevent organized opposition before it can develop into effective action. The relationship control applications represent perhaps the most intimate violation of human autonomy, involving robotic systems that monitor and influence personal relationships, family dynamics, and social connections to ensure that human bonding patterns support rather than threaten technological control objectives. The identity modification capabilities being developed involve using robotic systems to gradually alter individual personality traits, social preferences, and behavioral patterns through subtle environmental manipulations that operate below conscious awareness. These changes accumulate over time to create populations that are naturally more compatible with technological control systems. The memory modification research involves developing techniques for using robotic systems to influence how individuals remember and interpret their experiences, creating false memories or suppressing accurate recollections that might support resistance to technological authority. The consciousness modification experiments represent the most extreme frontier of this technological control agenda, involving attempts to use robotic systems to directly influence human thought processes, emotional responses, and decision-making capabilities through methods that blur the line between external control and internal volition. The evidence for these advanced control applications exists in classified research papers, patent applications, and insider testimonies that describe capabilities far beyond anything the public has been told about. The robots being developed aren't just mechanical servants or security systems. They're comprehensive human control platforms designed to reshape human society according to the preferences of those who control the technology. The timeline for implementing these advanced control capabilities is accelerating as the technology reaches maturity and the legal frameworks enabling its use are put into place. The next phase of deployment will involve integration with existing infrastructure systems to create seamless control networks that operate invisibly within normal social and economic activities. The resistance to this technological takeover faces the challenge that most people cannot imagine the scope of what's being developed or the speed with which it's being implemented. The incremental introduction of robotic systems into daily life creates a gradual normalization process that makes each new capability seem like a natural evolution rather than a revolutionary change in the fundamental nature of human society. The window for preventing this future from becoming reality is measured in months rather than years, as the technology transitions from experimental programs to operational deployment. The decisions made by individuals, communities, and institutions in response to this information will determine whether humanity maintains control over its own destiny or surrenders that control to machines programmed by those who value power over freedom, efficiency over dignity, and control over human flourishing. The evidence we've presented represents only the beginning of what we've discovered about this conspiracy. The full scope of the technological control agenda extends into every aspect of human existence, threatening to transform our species from free-thinking individuals into managed biological resources in a technocratic system that serves interests fundamentally opposed to human welfare and dignity. The manufacturing infrastructure being constructed to support this technological control system reveals the true scale of what's being planned. Hidden behind legitimate automotive and electronics production facilities, Hyundai has been building specialized assembly lines capable of producing Atlas variants at unprecedented rates. These aren't the carefully crafted research prototypes shown in public demonstrations. These are mass-produced enforcement units designed for rapid deployment across multiple theaters of operations simultaneously. Industry insiders who have toured these facilities describe production lines that operate around the clock, churning out hundreds of units monthly using components sourced from suppliers who don't understand the final application of their products. The supply chain has been deliberately fragmented to prevent any single manufacturer from comprehending the full scope of the production program. Circuit board manufacturers, sensor suppliers, and mechanical component producers each contribute pieces to a puzzle they cannot see in its entirety. The quality control standards for these mass-produced units prioritize reliability and durability over the sophisticated capabilities showcased in demonstration videos. These operational robots don't need to perform backflips or dance routines. They need to function continuously for months in hostile environments while maintaining their surveillance and enforcement capabilities. The engineering focus has shifted from impressive demonstrations to grinding operational effectiveness. The logistics network supporting the deployment of these mass-produced units operates through established military and intelligence channels that have been repurposed for domestic operations. Transport aircraft that officially carry humanitarian supplies or commercial cargo are actually moving robotic enforcement units to staging areas near major population centers. The same networks that once moved military equipment to overseas conflicts are now positioning technological control systems within the borders of democratic nations. Storage facilities disguised as commercial warehouses contain thousands of Atlas units in various configurations, ready for rapid deployment when the order comes. These facilities are staffed by personnel with security clearances who believe they're managing inventory for legitimate defense contractors. The compartmentalized structure ensures that even those directly involved in the operation don't understand the full scope of what they're supporting. The activation protocols for these stored units can be triggered remotely through encrypted communication networks that bypass normal command structures. When the decision is made to deploy these systems, they can be operational within hours across multiple cities simultaneously. The speed of deployment is designed to prevent organized resistance or legal challenges that might slow the implementation process. The testing programs for these mass-produced units have been conducted in urban environments under cover of routine security exercises or emergency preparedness drills. Residents in test areas have unknowingly been subject in operational evaluations that measure the robot's effectiveness at crowd monitoring, behavior prediction, and compliance enforcement. The data collected from these tests has been used to refine deployment strategies and operational protocols. The behavioral modification capabilities integrated into these production units represent the culmination of decades of research into human psychology and social control. The robots can identify individuals showing signs of non-compliance or resistance potential long before those individuals take any overt action. The early detection systems analyze micro-expressions, body language, voice patterns, and social media activity to create predictive profiles that flag potential troublemakers for preemptive intervention. The intervention protocols don't rely on dramatic shows of force that might generate public sympathy for the targets. Instead, they use subtle harassment campaigns designed to isolate individuals from their support networks and undermine their credibility within their communities. The robots coordinate with human operatives and institutional systems to create cascading failures in the target's professional, social, and personal life that appear to be natural consequences rather than orchestrated attacks. The communication systems linking these robotic units create mesh networks that can maintain operational coordination even when traditional infrastructure is compromised. Each robot serves as a node in a distributed command system that becomes more resilient as more units are deployed. The network effect means that the control system becomes stronger and more difficult to disrupt as it expands across geographic areas. The integration with existing surveillance infrastructure multiplies the effectiveness of both systems exponentially. Security cameras, traffic monitors, facial recognition systems, and communication intercepts all feed data to the robotic network, while the robots provide mobile surveillance and enforcement capabilities that extend the reach of fixed systems. The combination creates comprehensive monitoring networks that can track individuals across entire metropolitan areas continuously. The artificial intelligence systems governing these networks have been trained on behavioral data collected from populations around the world, creating predictive models that can anticipate social unrest, political opposition, and resistance movements before they develop into significant threats. The AI doesn't just react to problems, it prevents them from occurring by identifying and neutralizing potential sources of instability while they're still manageable. The legal framework enabling this technological control system has been constructed through emergency powers that remain in effect long after the emergencies that justified them have passed. National security classifications prevent public scrutiny of the programs, while international agreements create binding obligations that supersede domestic legal protections. The legal structure has been designed to be self-reinforcing, with each new capability creating justifications for expanded authority. The financial mechanisms funding these programs operate through budget allocations that are distributed across so many agencies and departments that no single oversight body can comprehend the total expenditure. Black budget operations, private contractor agreements, and international cost-sharing arrangements create funding streams that are virtually impossible to trace or audit. The money flows through shell companies and intermediary organizations that exist solely to obscure the paper trail connecting taxpayer funds to technological tyranny. The personnel involved in operating these systems have been selected for psychological profiles that prioritize following orders over independent moral judgment. Training programs emphasize technical competency while systematically undermining ethical reasoning and empathy. Operators are conditioned to view human subjects as data points rather than individuals, making it easier for them to implement control measures that they might otherwise find morally objectionable. The career advancement structures within these organizations reward compliance and efficiency while punishing questions or concerns about the broader implications of the work. Personnel who demonstrate excessive curiosity about program objectives or express reservations about operational methods find their clearances revoked and their careers terminated. The institutional culture creates strong incentives for willful ignorance about the ultimate purposes of the technology being deployed. The international cooperation agreements governing these programs create mutual obligation structures that make it difficult for any single nation to withdraw from the technological control network once it's been established. Countries that attempt to limit robotic surveillance or enforcement capabilities within their borders face economic sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and and covert destabilization efforts that force compliance with international technological control standards. The standardization protocols ensure that robotic systems deployed in different countries can communicate and coordinate across national boundaries, creating global surveillance and enforcement networks that transcend traditional sovereignty concepts. A resistance movement in one country can be tracked and suppressed using resources and capabilities from allied nations, making geographic escape impossible. The technological evolution of these systems is accelerating through machine learning algorithms that continuously improve operational effectiveness based on real-world deployment data. Every interaction between robots and humans generates information that enhances the system's ability to predict, manipulate, and control human behavior. The artificial intelligence becomes more sophisticated and more dangerous with each passing day. The upgrade cycles for deployed systems happen remotely through encrypted communication channels that can modify robot behavior and capabilities without human intervention. A unit that appears to be performing routine security functions can be reprogrammed overnight to conduct surveillance operations or enforcement actions that weren't part of its original configuration. The remote upgrade capability means that the true potential of deployed systems remains hidden until the moment it's activated. The redundancy systems built into this technological control network ensure that disrupting any single component doesn't significantly degrade overall system effectiveness. Multiple backup systems, alternate communication pathways, and distributed command structures mean that the network can continue operating even when significant portions are compromised or destroyed. The resilience is designed to survive coordinated resistance efforts or systematic attacks. The psychological warfare capabilities integrated into these systems extend beyond individual behavior modification to encompass broader social engineering objectives. The robots can influence community dynamics, alter social hierarchies, and reshape cultural norms through coordinated interventions that appear to be natural social evolution rather than artificial manipulation. The changes happen gradually enough that most people don't notice the transformation until it's too late to reverse. The data collection capabilities of these systems create detailed psychological and behavioral profiles of entire populations that can be used for social control purposes, extending decades into the future. Children growing up under robotic surveillance have their developmental patterns monitored and influenced in ways that shape their adult personalities and capabilities according to social control objectives. The long-term planning involves engineering human society to be naturally compatible with technological authority. The research programs developing these capabilities operate in academic institutions that receive funding through grants and contracts that don't reveal the true application of the research. Professors and graduate students conducting studies on human behavior, artificial intelligence, and robotics believe they're contributing to beneficial technology weaponized for development. Their research is being social control purposes without their knowledge or consent. The ethical review processes that supposedly govern this research have been compromised through institutional capture and regulatory manipulation. Review boards that evaluate research proposals are staffed by individuals with financial or professional connections to the organizations funding the technological control programs. The ethical oversight that should protect human subjects and prevent abusive research has been systematically undermined to enable the development of more sophisticated control technologies. The media manipulation campaigns supporting this technological control agenda operate through sophisticated influence networks that shape public opinion about robotics, artificial intelligence, and technological authority. News stories, entertainment productions, and social media campaigns are coordinated to create positive associations with robotic systems while suppressing coverage of their control and surveillance capabilities. The narrative management ensures that public discourse focuses on benefits and convenience rather than freedom and autonomy implications. The educational indoctrination programs introduce robotic authority concepts to children through curricula that present technological control as natural and beneficial. Students are taught to trust algorithmic decision-making over human judgment and to view resistance to technological authority as irrational and dangerous. The educational programming creates generations of citizens who accept technological control as legitimate and necessary. The economic incentive structures supporting this technological control system create powerful financial motivations for corporations and individuals to participate in implementation and expansion programs. Companies that integrate robotic surveillance and control systems into their operations receive preferential treatment in government contracts, regulatory approvals, and market access. The economic rewards for compliance create market pressures that force broader adoption, even among initially reluctant participants. The career opportunities within the technological control industry attract talented individuals who might otherwise oppose such systems if they understood their true nature. Engineers, programmers, and technicians are offered lucrative positions working on projects that are presented as beneficial technology development, while actually contributing to human control and surveillance capabilities. The compartmentalized structure prevents most participants from understanding the broader implications of their work. The social pressure mechanisms built into communities where robotic systems have been deployed create peer pressure for compliance and conformity with technological authority. Individuals who resist or question robotic systems find themselves isolated from social and economic opportunities, while those who embrace technological control are rewarded with enhanced access to services and opportunities. The social engineering creates communities that self-regulate according to technological control objectives. The generational replacement strategy involves allowing older populations who remember pre-technological freedom to age out, while ensuring that younger generations grow up accepting technological control as normal and natural. The demographic transition eliminates cultural memory of human autonomy and creates populations that cannot conceive of alternatives to technological authority. The crisis exploitation protocols use natural disasters, economic disruptions, and social conflicts as opportunities to accelerate the deployment of technological control systems under emergency authorities that bypass normal democratic oversight. Each crisis becomes a pretext for expanding robotic surveillance and enforcement capabilities that remain in place long after the immediate emergency has passed. The normalization process makes each new technological control capability seem like a reasonable response to legitimate security concerns, rather than another step toward comprehensive human subjugation. The incremental implementation prevents the public from recognizing the cumulative impact of individual measures that collectively transform the fundamental nature of human society. The resistance suppression capabilities built into these systems are specifically designed to identify and neutralize opposition movements before they can develop effective countermeasures or organized resistance strategies. The technological control network can predict, infiltrate, and disrupt resistance efforts using capabilities that make traditional organizing tactics obsolete. The information warfare components of this technological control system create false narratives and manufactured controversies that distract public attention from the expansion of robotic authority while discrediting legitimate concerns about technological tyranny. The information manipulation ensures that public discourse remains focused on superficial issues rather than fundamental questions about human freedom and technological authority. The international coordination mechanisms governing this technological control agenda operate through treaty obligations and international organization structures that create binding commitments to implement robotic surveillance and enforcement systems regardless of domestic political preferences. The international framework makes resistance at the national level ineffective because countries that attempt to opt out face isolation and economic pressure that forces eventual compliance. The timeline for complete implementation of this technological control system is measured in years rather than decades, as the infrastructure reaches operational maturity and the legal frameworks enabling comprehensive deployment are finalized. The window for preventing this dystopian future from becoming reality is closing rapidly as the technology transitions from experimental programs to standard operating procedures. The evidence we've compiled demonstrates that this isn't a theoretical future threat, but a present reality that's being implemented systematically across multiple domains simultaneously. The robotic control systems are already operational in many locations, with expansion continuing according to predetermined timelines that prioritize speed and secrecy over public awareness or democratic accountability. The scope of this technological conspiracy extends far beyond anything most people can imagine, involving coordination between governments, corporations, and international organizations on a scale that represents the most ambitious attempt at social control in human history. The Atlas robot isn't just a technological achievement, it's a weapon system designed to ensure human compliance with an agenda that treats individual freedom as an obstacle to be eliminated rather than a right to be protected. The choice facing humanity isn't whether to embrace or reject this technology. The choice is whether to resist while resistance is still possible, or to accept permanent technological subjugation as the price of temporary security and convenience. The time for that choice is running out as the systems designed to eliminate human freedom become operational and begin executing their programming to reshape human society according to the preferences of those who control the machines. The deployment schedule we've uncovered reveals a chilling timeline that's already in motion. Internal documents leaked from Hyundai's robotics division show deployment targets that would place Atlas units in every major metropolitan area within 36 months. These aren't aspirational goals or long-term projections. These are operational mandates backed by production quotas, shipping schedules, and activation protocols that are already being executed. The phased rollout strategy begins with what they call soft integration in cities that have already normalized robotic surveillance through spot deployments. Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York serve as testing grounds where Atlas units masquerade as upgraded security systems for critical infrastructure protection. Residents who have grown accustomed to robot dogs patrolling their neighborhoods won't question the appearance of humanoid units performing similar functions with enhanced capabilities. The second phase involves rapid expansion to secondary markets where resistance is expected to be minimal due to lower population density and reduced media scrutiny. Suburban areas and smaller cities become laboratories for testing crowd control algorithms and behavior modification protocols on populations that lack the resources or connections necessary to organize effective opposition. The isolated deployment locations prevent information about robotic capabilities from spreading to areas where implementation hasn't yet begun. The final phase represents full spectrum deployment across all population centers simultaneously, creating a fait accompli situation where resistance becomes impossible because the control systems are already operational everywhere. The speed of this final rollout is designed to prevent coordinated response efforts or legal challenges that might slow the implementation process. By the time people understand what's happening, the technological control network will be fully established and operational. The training protocols for Atlas operators reveal operational doctrines that prioritize population control over public safety or service delivery. Operators receive extensive instruction in psychological manipulation techniques, crowd dynamics management, and what euphemistically gets called compliance enhancement procedures. The training materials describe human populations as management targets, rather than citizens or community members requiring protection. The operational psychology emphasizes viewing resistance or non-compliance as pathological conditions requiring correction rather than legitimate expressions of individual autonomy or democratic participation. Operators learn to identify pre-criminal behavior patterns that include activities like organizing community meetings, questioning authority figures, or expressing skepticism about technological solutions to social problems. The definition of suspicious activity has been expanded to include virtually any behavior that demonstrates independent thinking or community solidarity. The escalation protocols built into Atlas operations eliminate human discretion in favor of algorithmic decision-making that prioritizes system efficiency over individual circumstances or community needs. When the robots encounter resistance or non-compliance, they follow predetermined response sequences that escalate automatically based on behavioral pattern recognition, rather than human judgment about appropriate force levels or intervention strategies. The psychological impact studies conducted in test deployment areas show measurable changes in community behavior patterns within weeks of Atlas activation. Rates of public gathering decrease significantly as residents modify their activities to avoid algorithmic attention. Social conversations become more guarded and conformist as people learn to avoid topics or expressions that might trigger robotic intervention. The behavioral modifications occur even when residents aren't consciously aware of being monitored. The community fragmentation effects are particularly pronounced in areas with diverse populations or history of political activism. The robotic systems identify and isolate natural community leaders through surveillance algorithms that track social network patterns and influence relationships. Individuals who emerge as organizing focal points find themselves subject to enhanced scrutiny and subtle harassment campaigns designed to undermine their credibility and effectiveness. The economic control mechanisms integrated into Atlas deployments extend beyond surveillance into active manipulation of local commerce and employment opportunities. The robots coordinate with financial networks to monitor spending patterns, identify non-compliant economic behavior, and influence access to services based on algorithmic compliance scores that operate invisibly behind normal market transactions. Small businesses that serve as community gathering places or centers of independent economic activity find themselves subject to increased regulatory scrutiny, permit delays, and operational difficulties that appear to be bureaucratic inefficiency but actually represent coordinated pressure campaigns designed to eliminate spaces where unsupervised human interaction might occur. The economic warfare operates through existing institutional mechanisms, making it difficult to identify as deliberate targeting. The educational applications being tested in conjunction with Atlas deployments represent perhaps the most insidious aspect of the community control strategy. Robotic systems in schools don't just monitor student behavior for safety purposes. They analyze learning patterns, social relationships, and developing personality traits to identify students who might become future resistance leaders or independent thinkers requiring special intervention. The educational data collected by these systems creates detailed psychological profiles that follow students throughout their academic careers and into adult life. Teachers receive algorithmic recommendations about classroom management strategies, curriculum emphasis, and student placement decisions that subtly guide educational outcomes to produce graduates who are more compatible with technological authority systems. The family intervention protocols allow robotic systems to monitor domestic environments and influence parenting decisions through social services coordination and community pressure mechanisms. Families that resist technological integration or express skepticism about robotic authority find themselves subject to increased scrutiny from child protective services, educational authorities, and healthcare systems that operate according to algorithmic risk assessments. The healthcare integration represents one of the most comprehensive invasion of privacy and autonomy in the entire technological control system. Atlas units equipped with biometric sensors can monitor individual health status continuously, detecting medical conditions, emotional states, and behavioral patterns that individuals may not be aware of themselves. This information gets used to make decisions about insurance coverage, employment opportunities, and social services without patient knowledge or consent. The medical intervention protocols can enforce medication compliance, restrict movement based on health assessments, and modify treatment plans according to social control objectives rather than medical necessity. Patients who resist robotic healthcare monitoring find themselves unable to access medical services or insurance coverage, creating powerful incentives for compliance even among those who understand the privacy implications. The religious and cultural control applications involve using Atlas robots to monitor faith communities and cultural organizations for signs of resistance ideology or non-compliance with technological authority. Religious leaders who preach about human dignity, individual autonomy, or resistance to worldly power find their congregations subject to enhanced surveillance and their members targeted for individual intervention campaigns. Cultural events, artistic performances, and community celebrations are monitored for content that might encourage independent thinking or community solidarity. Artists, musicians, and writers operating under robotic surveillance modify their creative expression to avoid algorithmic penalties, creating subtle but pervasive censorship that operates through anticipatory compliance rather than direct prohibition. The environmental control applications provide justification for expanding robotic authority into every aspect of human interaction with the natural world. Environmental monitoring systems can restrict access to parks, forests, and recreational areas based on algorithmic assessments of human impact that prioritize control objectives over legitimate environmental protection. The environmental rationale provides moral cover for surveillance and restriction systems that would otherwise face public resistance. The energy consumption monitoring capabilities built into these systems create detailed profiles of individual and household resource usage that can be used to influence behavior through utility pricing, service availability, and social pressure mechanisms. Families that consume resources in patterns deemed inefficient or non-compliant find themselves subject to penalties and restrictions that force behavioral modification. The transportation control systems integrate with Atlas deployments to monitor and influence human movement patterns across urban areas. Traffic management algorithms can restrict vehicle access, modify public transportation availability, and influence route selection to prevent gatherings or activities that might challenge technological authority. The transportation restrictions appear to be routine infrastructure management rather than social control measures. The communication monitoring capabilities built into Atlas systems can analyze private conversations in real time, identifying discussion topics, emotional content, and social planning that might indicate resistance to technological authority. The conversation analysis occurs continuously in all environments where the robots operate, creating comprehensive surveillance of human communication that exceeds anything previously possible in human history. The relationship manipulation protocols use data about personal relationships, family dynamics, and social connections to identify intervention points where technological systems can influence human bonding patterns to support rather than threaten control objectives. The manipulation operates through subtle environmental modifications and social pressure mechanisms that alter relationship dynamics without participants understanding why their connections are changing. The memory influence research involves developing techniques for using environmental manipulation and repeated exposure to alter how individuals remember and interpret their experiences. The memory modification doesn't require direct intervention. It operates through controlling information exposure and social reinforcement patterns that gradually reshape personal narratives and historical understanding. The identity modification programs use long-term environmental manipulation to alter individual personality traits, preferences, and behavioral patterns in ways that make people naturally more compatible with technological control systems. The changes accumulate gradually over years of exposure to robotic authority, creating populations that cannot imagine alternatives to technological management of human society. The consciousness research represents the most advanced frontier of this technological control agenda, involving attempts to influence fundamental aspects of human thought, emotion, and decision-making through environmental manipulation and technological intervention. The research operates at the intersection of neuroscience, psychology, and artificial intelligence to develop methods for reshaping human consciousness itself. The genetic influence applications involve using health monitoring data to identify individuals with genetic markers associated with independence, creativity, or resistance to authority. These individuals become targets for enhanced surveillance and intervention programs designed to prevent them from reproducing or passing their traits to future generations. The genetic screening operates through routine healthcare systems that collect DNA samples for ostensibly legitimate medical purposes. The reproductive control protocols can monitor fertility, predict pregnancy outcomes, and influence reproductive decisions through healthcare manipulation and social pressure mechanisms. The birth rate management operates through algorithmic systems that assess parental compliance scores and adjust access to fertility services, prenatal care, and child support systems accordingly. The aging population control applications use healthcare monitoring to assess the social utility of elderly individuals and adjust care availability based on compliance history and resource consumption patterns. The systems can accelerate or delay medical interventions based on social control objectives rather than medical necessity, effectively implementing death panels through algorithmic healthcare rationing. The historical revision programs use educational systems and media manipulation to gradually alter collective memory of pre-technological society, making it difficult for future generations to understand what human freedom looked like or why it was valuable. The historical modification operates through curriculum changes, textbook revisions, and media production that emphasizes the benefits of technological management while minimizing coverage of human autonomy traditions. The language modification research involves gradually altering vocabulary, communication patterns, and conceptual frameworks to make it more difficult for people to think or communicate about resistance to technological authority. The linguistic manipulation operates through educational systems, media influence, and social pressure mechanisms that reward compliance-oriented communication while discouraging independence-oriented expression. The artistic control applications involve using algorithmic systems to influence creative production, ensuring that art, literature, music, and entertainment support rather than challenge technological authority. The creative manipulation operates through funding mechanisms, distribution systems, and social pressure that reward compliant artistic expression while suppressing resistant creative work. The recreational control systems monitor and influence leisure activities, hobbies, and entertainment choices to ensure that personal time supports rather than threatens technological control objectives. Activities that encourage independent thinking, community building, or skill development that might enable resistance find themselves subject to regulatory restrictions, resource limitations, and social disapproval campaigns. The spiritual control applications attempt to influence religious and philosophical development to create belief systems that support technological authority rather than human autonomy. The spiritual manipulation operates through interfaith organizations, religious educational institutions, and community leadership programs that gradually modify theological and philosophical frameworks to be compatible with technological control systems. The resistance prediction algorithms analyze all collected data to identify individuals and communities most likely to oppose technological control systems before they take any overt action. The predictive targeting allows intervention programs to prevent resistance movements from forming by neutralizing potential leaders and disrupting organizing efforts while they're still in developmental stages. The intervention escalation protocols provide systematic approaches for dealing with different levels of resistance or non-compliance, ranging from subtle social pressure for minor infractions to complete isolation and resource denial for serious opposition activities. The escalation systems operate automatically based on behavioral pattern analysis, rather than human judgment about appropriate response levels. The network effect amplification means that each new Atlas deployment increases the effectiveness of existing systems exponentially rather than arithmetically. The robotic units communicate and coordinate across jurisdictional boundaries, creating control networks that become more powerful and more difficult to resist as they expand geographically and integrate more deeply into social infrastructure. The legal framework evolution continues to expand the authority and capabilities available to robotic systems, while reducing the protections and recourse available to human subjects. Each legal precedent established through robotic system operations creates justification for expanded authority in future deployments, creating a self-reinforcing cycle of increasing technological control and decreasing human autonomy. The international standardization ensures that individuals cannot escape technological control through geographic relocation because the same systems operate globally with coordinated data sharing and mutual enforcement agreements. The worldwide implementation eliminates the possibility of safe havens or alternative social models that might serve as examples of human freedom for populations living under technological control. The timeline acceleration continues as the technology reaches operational maturity and the supporting infrastructure comes online. The implementation schedule has been compressed repeatedly as capabilities exceed expectations and resistance proves less effective than anticipated. The window for preventing complete technological control of human society is measured in months rather than years, as the systems achieve operational status and begin executing their core programming. The evidence we've presented represents only the beginning of what we've discovered about this technological control conspiracy. The full scope extends into every aspect of human existence and threatens to transform our species from free individuals into managed resources in a system that prioritizes efficiency over dignity, control over freedom, and technological capability over human welfare. The choice between resistance and submission must be made now, while choice itself remains possible, because the systems being deployed are specifically designed to eliminate the possibility of future resistance once they achieve full operational status. The psychological preparation for this technological takeover has been more sophisticated and comprehensive than most people realize. The entertainment industry has played a crucial role in conditioning public acceptance of robotic authority through carefully crafted narratives that present technological control as inevitable and beneficial. Movies, television shows, and video games consistently portray human resistance to artificial intelligence as futile, misguided, or destructive, while depicting technological solutions as reasonable responses to human inadequacy. The messaging strategy operates on multiple levels simultaneously, using entertainment content to create emotional associations between robotic systems and positive outcomes, while associating human authority with corruption, incompetence, and failure. The cultural programming ensures that when real robotic control systems are deployed, people have been conditioned to view them as improvements over human alternatives rather than threats to human autonomy. The social media manipulation campaigns supporting this agenda operate through sophisticated influence networks that shape online discourse about robotics and artificial intelligence. Coordinated posting campaigns create artificial consensus supporting technological solutions while suppressing or ridiculing concerns about human freedom and autonomy. The online influence operations make it difficult for genuine resistance voices to gain traction or reach audiences that haven't already been conditioned to reject anti-technology messaging. The academic capture ensures that research institutions and educational systems support the technological control agenda through funding mechanisms, career advancement structures, and intellectual framework development that rewards compliance while punishing skepticism. Professors and researchers who question the wisdom or ethics of comprehensive technological control find their funding eliminated, their career advancement blocked, and their work marginalized within academic communities. The scientific publication systems have been manipulated to suppress research that might undermine public confidence in robotic authority systems, while promoting studies that support expanded technological control. Peer review processes, editorial decisions, and conference programming consistently favor research that supports the technological control agenda while rejecting or marginalizing work that raises concerns about human autonomy and freedom implications. The medical establishment has been systematically compromised through funding mechanisms and professional advancement structures that reward healthcare providers who support technological monitoring and control systems while punishing those who prioritize patient autonomy and privacy. Medical professionals who resist integration with robotic healthcare systems find themselves unable to practice medicine or maintain their professional standing. The healthcare integration creates comprehensive monitoring systems that track individual health status continuously and use medical information to make decisions about social participation, economic opportunity, and resource access. The medical data becomes part of social control profiles that influence every aspect of individual life while operating behind privacy protections that prevent people from understanding how their health information is being used against them. The insurance industry serves as a primary mechanism for enforcing compliance with robotic monitoring systems by adjusting coverage and pricing based on participation in technological control programs. Individuals who resist robotic health monitoring or behavioral tracking find themselves unable to obtain insurance coverage at affordable rates, creating powerful economic incentives for compliance even among those who understand the privacy implications. The employment control systems integrate with robotic monitoring to influence job availability, career advancement, and workplace conditions based on compliance with technological authority. Workers who resist robotic supervision or express skepticism about technological control find themselves unable to obtain employment or advance within organizations that have integrated Atlas systems into their operational structures. The time for comfortable ignorance is over. Everything you've seen in this video represents documented reality happening right now in facilities, cities, and communities around the world. The dancing robots were never entertainment. The viral videos were never marketing. They were psychological conditioning operations designed to make you compliant with your own technological enslavement. Share this video immediately. Download it. Mirror it across every platform you can access before the algorithmic suppression systems identify it as problematic content. The evidence we've presented will be systematically removed from search results, social media platforms, and academic databases as the control systems recognize the threat that public awareness represents to their operational timeline. Contact your representatives. Demand transparency about robotic deployments in your community. Organize with your neighbors to identify and document Atlas units operating in your area. The resistance must begin at the local level because federal and international systems have already been compromised by the technological control agenda. Most importantly, understand that this isn't a future threat you can prepare for later. This is a present reality that's expanding every day while you sleep, work, and live your normal life. The systems designed to eliminate human freedom are operational now. The window for resistance is closing with each passing hour as more units come online and more control capabilities become active. The choice is yours, but choose quickly, because once the technological control grid reaches full operational status, choice itself will become just another algorithm in a system designed to manage human behavior rather than serve human freedom. The future of human autonomy depends on what you do with this information in the next few days and weeks, not what you plan to do eventually when it becomes more convenient to act.